Hello students, today we will study chapter 7 of Civics, Understanding Marginalization. Social justice refers to a condition in which all citizens are treated as equal. No discrimination is made between them on the basis of caste, religion, or on the basis of being rich or poor. But this is not the case in India. In our society, some groups of people or communities may have the experience of being excluded, marginalized, or exploited, meaning that they do not get equal opportunities like the majority people living in the society. So, what is marginalization? Marginalization means to make a group of people feel unimportant and isolated. Their marginalization may be because they belong to some caste or religions different from the majority community. They may speak different language or follow different customs. They may also be marginalized because they are poor and considered to be of low social status. So, what does it mean to be socially marginalized? A group of people or community that feels excluded due to different religious beliefs, or they speak a different language or follow different customs, or they have low social status. Economically, they are not well off as the other people. Then such a group is said to be socially marginalized. So to understand this better, let's see from your book. Some of you have probably experienced this situation in the classroom or playground. If you are not like most people in your class, that is, if your taste in music or films is different, if your accent makes you out from others, if you are less chatty than others or less talkative than the others in the classroom, if you don't play the same sport that many of your classmates like, if you dress differently, there are chances that you will not be considered to be in by your peers. So you end up feeling that you are not with it or not acceptable to others and left out from the whole crowd in the playground or in your classroom. So marginalization has a very bad impact on our society. This sense of being different and exclusion leads to the communities not having access to resources and opportunities, and in their inability to assert their rights. The marginalized groups feel a sense of insecurity, disadvantage, and powerlessness in comparison to the dominant groups of the society who own land, are wealthy, better educated, and have political power or are politically powerful. So marginalization is the social process of being confined to a lower social standing. It involves people being denied their fundamental rights, which results in lowering their economic and social status. In the social environment, groups of people or communities may have the experience of being excluded. They are denied even their basic fundamental rights guaranteed by the Constitution, that right to life, right to have their own religion, right to practice any profession they like, right to education. All these are denied due to marginalization. And marginalization is a result of social, religious, political, and economic factors. They all contribute in making certain groups of a society feel marginalized. Even though these people, they often work even more than others, but are yet deprived from access to vital needs like water and sanitation. In most of the cases, you will see that they are not allowed to mingle with the majority population in society. They may have a different area to live in. They will be crowded in very small areas, living in close proximity to each other. Then they may not even be allowed to enter temples. Sometimes you'll see not to buy things from all the places that where most of the population go. And what is a marginalized population? It is a group of people that is excluded from full participation in society. Marginalization includes withholding of political rights, economic opportunity, and social integration. And the examples of marginalized population are the racial and ethnic groups, immigrants and refugees, individuals with mental or physical disabilities, older individuals, and those of lower socioeconomic status, marginalized gender, and youth. Now let us see who are Adivasis. The term literally means original inhabitants. So Adivasis are communities who lived and often continue to live in close association with forests. So Adivasis, the term means original inhabitants. You can see here around 8% of India's population is Adivasi. Some tribal groups live in states like Chhattisgarh, Jharkhand, Madhya Pradesh, Orissa, Gujarat, Rajasthan, Andhra Pradesh, West Bengal, northeastern states of Arunachal Pradesh, Assam, Manipur, Meghalaya, Mizoram, Nagaland, and Tripura. There are more than 500 different Adivasi groups in India. Adivasis have always been influenced by different surroundings, religions like Shakta, Buddhist, Vaishnav, Bhakti, Christianity. They have their own language. These Adivasi societies are also most distinctive because often there is very little hierarchy among them. This makes them radically different from communities organized around principles of Jati Varna or caste system. There is no caste system as such in these communities. Now there are certain problems faced by these Adivasis. Since they are living in close association with the forest and mostly dependent on the forest, so after the forest lands have been cleared for timber and to get land for agriculture and industry, Adivasis have also lived in areas that are rich in minerals and other natural resources. These are taken over for mining and other industrial projects, and this has not happened very recently. This has been happening for quite some time since the Britishers were ruling India. Powerful forces have often colluded to take over tribal land. Much of the time, the land is taken away forcefully and procedures are not followed. According to official figures, more than 50% of persons displaced due to mines and mining projects are tribals. Another recent survey report of organizations working among Adivasis shows that 79% of the persons displaced from the states of Andhra Pradesh, Chhattisgarh, Orissa, and Jharkhand are tribals. Huge tracts of their land have also gone under the waters of hundreds of dams that have been built in independent India. In the northeast, their lands remain highly militarized and war-torn. India has 54 national parks and 372 wildlife sanctuaries covering 1,09,652 square kilometers. These are areas where tribals originally lived but were evicted from, and when they continue to stay in these forests, they are termed encroachers. Earlier, when the Britishers were ruling India, they had made certain forest laws and they did not allow these tribals who had their livelihood totally dependent upon the forest. So during the time of the Britishers also, they were evicted from these forests, and even after independence, they have not been rehabilitated in other places after being evicted from their ancestral lands. And when they continue to stay in these forests, they are termed as encroachers. Losing their lands and access to the forest means that tribals lose their main source of livelihood and food. Having gradually lost access to their traditional homelands, Many Adivasis have migrated to cities in search of work, where they are employed for very low wages in local industries or at building or construction sites. Thus, they get caught in a cycle of poverty and deprivation. 45% of tribal groups in rural areas and 35% in urban areas live below the poverty line, meaning they are very, very poor. This leads to deprivation in other areas. Many tribal children are malnourished. Literacy rates among tribals are very low. When Adivasis are displaced from their lands, they lose much more than a source of income. They lose their home, they lose their family, their community. They lose their traditions, customs, that is the way of living for them. They took our farming land, they left some houses, they took the cremation ground, temples, well and pond. How will we survive, says Govinda Maran, who was displaced due to a refinery project in Orissa. And as you have read, there exists an interconnectedness between the economic and social dimensions of tribal life. Destruction in one sphere naturally impacts the other. Often this process of dispossession and displacement can be painful and violent. And to understand this Adivasis and marginalization, there is a very nice example given in your book in which Adivasi family in Delhi is sitting with their grandfather, and then these two children, they are watching the Republic Day parade, and one of them says that see, Dadu, why do we always see Adivasis as only dancing? Then the grandfather, he says, the lives of Adivasis are very rich. Most people don't know about them. And then he tells the whole story as to how they were evicted from the forest land and how they had to come back migrate to cities as seasonal workers in nearby towns and cities, and they had to leave their homes. Then when they finally have come to Delhi and settle there, and their father finds a job in Delhi. So then the girl, she says that I wish I could have shown my friends our village before it was destroyed. And then she says that I will make a movie on this story, our story, the Adivasi story. For this you need to read the chapter. It's given very nicely in your book. Adivasis and stereotyping. In India, we usually showcase Adivasi communities in particular ways. Adivasis are invariably portrayed in very stereotypical ways in colorful costumes, headgear through their dancing, and mostly during school functions or other official events or in books and movies you will see them. This leads to people believing that they are exotic, primitive and backward. Adivasis are blamed for their lack of advancement, as they are believed to be resistant to change or new ideas. Now coming to the topic, Adivasis and development. As you have already read in your history textbook, forests were absolutely crucial to the development of all empires and settled civilization in India. Metal ores like iron and copper, gold and silver, coal and diamonds, invaluable timber, most medicinal herbs and animal products like wax, lac, honey, and animals themselves, elephants, the mainstay of imperial armies, all came from the forest. In addition, the continuation of life dependent heavily on forests that help recharge many of India's rivers and, as is becoming clearer now, crucial to the availability and quality of our air and water. Forests covered the major part of our country till the 19th century, and the Adivasis had a deep knowledge of, access to, as well as control over most of these vast tracts, at least till the middle of the 19th century. This meant that they were not ruled by large states and empires. Instead, often empires heavily dependent on Adivasis for the crucial access to forest resources. So now you should know what are scheduled tribes. This refers to the tribes that are listed as scheduled tribes in our constitution. These communities lived and often continue to live in close association with the forest. These tribes need special attention for their development. There's another term, scheduled caste, which will be referred to in these chapters. So you need to know what are scheduled castes. The group of people at the bottom level of the caste ladder are called untouchables or Dalits or scheduled castes. These castes need special attention for their progress too. And Adivasis or the tribals, they have been increasingly forced through economic changes, forest policies and political force applied by the state and private industry to migrate to live as workers in plantations, at construction sites, in industries and as domestic workers. So for the first time in history, they did not have control or direct access to the forest territories, which were very much important for their life. Adivasi communities, they are shown in very typical way, in a very stereotyped manner, as being very primitive, exotic and backward, but they have a very rich culture. As you can see in this picture, the tribal art and handicrafts, they know how to make beautiful items out of things very close to nature, with which are very beautiful and have very low cost of production. So these all things have been handed over from generations to the from the older generation to the new generation. And it's not just that these people, they only know how to dance and have those colorful costumes and singing, but they have a very rich tribal culture. We get to see all these things in the handicrafts, melas or exhibitions organized by the government, where we can buy these beautiful items made by the tribals from all over India. Now coming to the end of this video, you need to answer the following questions. List at least 3 different reasons why groups may be marginalized. What does the term Adivasi literally mean? Define the term scheduled tribes. In what stereotypical ways are the Adivasi communities portrayed in India? To find the answers to these questions, please read the chapter thoroughly twice and you will find all the answers. Thank you, children.